So, Michael Stalker, I appreciate you coming here. I want to find out what exactly a supervising animator does for
Sure.
Finding Dory and other
Sure.
movies, but I want to start off with the fact that you apparently have some local ties.
I do.
You grew up in Spokane,
I
spent
did.
some time in Seattle. Just in a minute or two, can you explain how you go from being a kid in Spokane to being now with the exalted Pixar animation studios?
When I started, I went into college. My goal was to be an illustrator, right? A painter.
Okay.
I wanted to, and so I went to Spokane Falls Community College. But right at the end of my time there, I took one film class. I was sort of interested in movies, but I took one film class and then forgot about it. Went on, moved to Seattle to become an illustrator, and I worked for Teague and Associates, who was a contracted company for Boeing, where I painted interiors. But that film bug kind of resurfaced again, and it never really went away. And so I decided at that point I wanted to get into making movies. Not yet quite. Animation hadn't shown up in my life yet, but I knew I could draw. I could do that stuff. And I saw a commercial for the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And somehow that, at the exact time that I was interested in movies, said animation. That's what I wanted to do.
Wow.
So I ended up going back to school at Cal Arts, which is a school just outside of LA. To learn about animation.
Now, are you unusual, or animators come from unexpected places?
From what I can tell, there is no single one path.
Okay.
Everyone comes from somewhere else and has a really unique story on how they got to animation. It's becoming a little bit more of a commonplace, I think, because of the popularity of all the movies and animation. People are like much younger, like, I really want to be an animator, but it was not anything that I knew you could do until much later.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
So I am curious. I mean, I'm a big fan, obviously, like everybody else, of Pixar films. I thought Inside Out was the best movie of the year, the #1 movie of the year.
It's fantastic.
Hands down. I don't understand
fantastic.
why it didn't win Best Picture. It actually disappoints me that there's an Oscar for just Best Animated, because I think it sort of puts you guys in the ghetto, and you're not allowed to get out and actually get Best Picture kind of attention, because it was an absolutely brilliant movie.
Thank you. I think so too. I think it's an amazing thing, and I appreciate that you welcome animation into the canon of all movies, because I think a lot of people don't see animation as a film, which it is, like other things. So they created a category for us.
Yeah, I know, unfortunately. Pixar is sort of forcing that issue, though, and I hope that you guys keep up the good work. And Finding Dory, again, is another one of those great Pixar films. But what I want to ask, so I've interviewed various people, directors and all that, but I don't think I've ever interviewed a supervising animator. So I'm just curious about, what do supervising animators do? What are you in charge of, and what are you responsible for?
Sure. So my job, as I see it, there's two. I have a partner, Dave Devana, and myself. We are the two supervising animators on Finding Dory, and our job is to make sure that our directors have our job is performance. So animators are actors, right? So our job is to provide the acting for the directors, for their vision, and it's my job to make sure that the acting is what they want. To make sure, we have 70 animators on the show, and they're all, a lot of them, multiple people are animating Dory, and we need to make sure that across all those different shots that Dory feels like Dory, she looks like Dory, and we just sort of provide that. And then I'm also, the two of us have been on the movie for almost 3.5 years, sort of building the models that we animate.
Wow.
Setting up the show so that when our 70 plus animators come on the show to animate, they can just go and put in a performance, so that's what I do.
And so do you like talk before they begin animating, before anybody puts paper to pen, do you like bring them all together, corral them all together, say, okay, here's our idea of Dory, and here's what we want her to reflect and not reflect? I mean, do you like coach them up before they actually work, or do you say, okay, here's the basic story, you've got the script, run with it, and then we'll come back and we'll sort of tweak or correct?
Yes, so we're animating long before the story is locked down, right? So the story is never done, and so we're animating the movie. Andrew's busy still writing the movie and making the movie. We might even put in a whole sequence and that does not fit in the story anymore, and we throw it out and start over again. So it's always on the table. Everything, we're making things all the time. The more we can provide a performance, that also helps flesh out the story. So we might do some piece of animation that Andrew didn't expect. Oh, let's go this way so that's what's really great about Pixar. Everything's kind of cooking, and we're making it all the time.
So you're not like actors then. You know, actors wouldn't act without a script, but you're
Yes.
telling me that you would actually animate with basic, some basic ideas, but without necessarily a script.
Yeah, there's two things going on. We generally have the script. We
Okay.
have what we're animating to Ellen's voice.
Okay.
We have her voice before
Okay.
we animate. But there's times when there's no talking, or there's times before we have started principal animation where we're like, okay, well, in our movie we have an octopus. How
Yeah.
would an octopus move? So we spend a lot of time sort of figuring that stuff out.
It's a very active octopus. I
Yes,
might
it
point
is.
out,
It
yes.
is very difficult. It's
Yeah.
very difficult. So there was a lot of, to your question earlier, there was sort of a Hank boot camp that we all went to sort of learn how to move that character around.
Huh.
And there was a lot, a group of us who sort of had to figure that out before we really started. So there's a lot of work that's done before. We go
Okay.
to places, we explore, we learn all the different species.
Yeah.
How are they going to move? How does a whale move? We have to learn all that stuff before we can actually animate.
So you've been again, I want to get this right, a supervising animator on a number of movies. Is there a particular, like when they hire you, is there a particular Michael Stalker style of animating supervisor, or are you basically the best animating supervisor, or somebody who is, you can't tell your fingerprints?
Well, so this is the first movie I've actually been a supervisor on.
Oh, okay.
And
Oh.
I've been what's called a lead on other movies, which is sort of a different kind of role. But for the most part, I'm an animator.
Okay.
I come from animation. I came from 2D animation, so I have some experience. So I think that helps feed the role that I end up playing.
Okay.
But at heart, I'm an animator, and as an animator, I'm an actor, and that's what I love to do.
Okay, but I mean, so is there a Michael Stalker style? In other words, if people that really know Pixar films really intensely would say, "Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I
see,
can,"
yeah.
like a director, oh, that's a Hitchcock or that's a Kubrick. Is there a kind of style that you bring to your animation?
I can't see
Okay.
it, but I will say that when I'm on a movie, the supervisors of that movie, if I'm on will cast me certain shots that they think my work will fit best in.
Yes,
so
yes,
I do the
interesting.
same. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I will do the same thing as I look at my crew.
Yeah.
Some of them are really good at acting, in depth, really touching acting. Some are really good at action, and so I might cast them accordingly.
So they have specialties.
They might have
Yeah.
specialties, and I also then try to cast some shots that might be harder for them, so that I can push them a little. We might find something really unique.
So what's your specialty?
Mine, I don't know.
Okay.
Again, it's for
Yeah.
someone else to sort of do.
Gotcha.
I like doing the more sort of acting in inner, scenes that you sort of have to draw on something inner. I'm not as
Yeah.
great as maybe the action stuff, but
Yeah.
maybe that answers your question.
Very cool. Okay. I've had some friends that are into animation.
Mm-hmm.
It's their favorite kind of movies, actually, are animated movies. And I asked them, and I'm curious about what you would say. How do you judge how successful animation is in a movie? What do you look for when you know the business inside out? How do you tell what's good animation and what isn't?
Oh, that's a good question. That's tough because it's so subjective. For me, the main thing is, does it emote? Does it make me feel something in any particular shot or series of shots? Am I feeling anything? Am I feeling something? Is it giving me something, a piece of the story? And if it is, and clearly, I guess that really is a successful group of shots.
Yeah.
I mean, our shots. Their shots are shots, and we're animating, and we're trying to design them. Every shot we do is designed. We literally are tweaking every frame to make it sort of read how we want it to do.
Yeah.
So we're crafting this performance, but we never want to lose sight of what we're doing, which is telling this long story, right?
Yeah.
So story is everything. So we're telling this bigger story, but then within our shot, there's these little stories that we're trying to tell as well. And if it emotes and you feel something, we're successful.
Yeah, that's what my friend always says. I don't know the technical aspects of
Sure.
what great animation is. Oh my God, do you see how that's never been done before? I don't notice it. He says, doesn't matter. It works. If it doesn't work as a story, if it's just a flourish, a tour de force, animatic, sort of a animation, maybe history be made, but if it doesn't help the story, it's not. You should just relax, enjoy it, and if
Yeah.
it works as a story, it works.
And there's
that's how
some
you
shots
judge.
that are purely there to tell story. There's
Yeah.
some shots that are set up to be just fun to watch, and
Yeah.
that also can be just a successful thing to have something. Hank coming out of this octopus doing an octopus thing. That's fun to watch.
Yeah.
So that provides a little piece of entertainment in this bigger story that.
Okay, and then we're going to talk about Finding Dory in just a second.
Great.
I just want to take advantage of your
Sure.
expertise.
Sure.
In terms of animation, how how has the computer basically turned your world upside down? Is it making it a richer world that you know, instead of actually hand drawing all those things, you see Walt Disney and all these things?
Yeah.
How is the computer sort of enhanced and maybe detracted from the world of animation?
Well, it's funny because I come from 2D. The animation rules that we use to animate, they did in Pinocchio or Snow White. It's the same thing. And we're just using those, and we're just building our performance more with a puppet rather than drawing. So we're sort of, I guess some people might feel an affinity for the drawing because you do feel kind of that handcrafted feel. A Miyazaki movie, for example, is this beautiful world that they create, and it really feels handcrafted.
Yeah.
Now with the computer, we're handcrafting the same thing, but there's a different feel to it. It's more based in what feels like a reality. And so we're trying as much as possible to make both worlds as rich as possible. And you get a lot of cool things from the movies that we make with lighting and with other things.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a preference. I don't know if people.
I guess my question for you then is: could you make a great Pixar film that wasn't computer animated? In other words, what if you went back and just for the hell of it, remade Toy Story 3 and just did it? Could that be done, or is it that there are things that make Toy Story 3 a great movie work primarily, or not primarily, but only because it has that computer animation?
Yeah, I think it's a hard thing. I think if we animated something in 2D, it would be different, but it would be successful because the story's amazing.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even matter. Like the story's amazing. We could make it in stop motion. The story's amazing. In terms of what each world brings. Toy Story, when we first saw that fully realized, was such a cool new thing to see this three-dimensional world that was amazing. Yeah. And it still is amazing. Yeah. When I watch Ratatouille or when I watch the Cars world, they bring something that's really, really cool and really designed and beautiful. And I feel the same about 2D when I watch a great 2D movie. Yeah. The story is everything. So, and that's the way it is for us.
Okay, let's talk about Finding Dory. So, I think, to me, I thought there are at least 2, maybe 3 hurdles that I felt like before I even saw the movie. Here's what you're going to have to address. So we have a mother out here, works in a, she's got these 2 kids and stuff. And when we first were talking about a movie, a full-length movie about Dory, she says, "Oh my God, that's going to be so annoying." Because the great thing about that character in Finding Nemo, it was great comic relief. And I mean, there was more buzz, I think, about Ellen DeGeneres than there was about anything else in Finding Nemo. It was great. But one of the hurdles it felt like to me was, how are you going to make an entire movie around a character who was really kind of more of comic relief?
Sure.
And if you were concerned about that, how did you grapple with that particular problem? How to make a kind of a funny but maybe annoying character, the center?
It certainly was a challenge. You have a character that can't. What does she remember and what does she not remember?
Yes.
And we had multiple different versions of the story to try to unlock what she retained and what she didn't. And you're right, we would get to we'd go down a certain path and be like, "Oh, this isn't going anywhere. We're not," and it could tend to be annoying, or it just wasn't satisfying. We had to honor her character. She's just super sweet. What's great about her is because of her problem, she is in the moment all the time. She has to be. So everything is in the moment. But then some things would stick. Yeah. And it was really it was tricky to sort of find the path through the film and how to sort of introduce information that she would retain that would then get you to that want to be with her the entire movie. I think we did a good job of figuring that out. But it was challenging for sure.
Yeah. Okay, and then the second thing is when you've got, I don't know if you feel comfortable talking about her short-term memory loss as a disability, but it seems to me that it's a disability that as creators take sort of like, you have a lot of fun with. They're jokes. I mean, she's the butt of a lot of jokes. Right. At the same time, I think this is as, I don't know, I hate it. It's as much a kind of pro-disability movie as you could possibly make. It seems to me that you embrace, we all have a version of what Dory is dealing with, and it's how we cope with how we're dealing with each of our own hurdles, I suppose.
For sure.
But how did you address that issue of, am I stepping over the line? Am I having too much fun at the expense of somebody who, in Dory's case, has short-term memory loss, and in anybody's case, are you making light of disability?
I don't think we're making light of it. I think we treated her as a particular character who had this sort of affliction. We were tried to be very true to that. I think Ellen's DNA lives in this character, and it's just the way she sort of delivers lines, I think, has a lot to do with how you sort of perceive that disability. She provides a humor and even how she might bend a line a little bit, that it's funny, but you also, I think you sort of feel the pain that's there. I mean, Nemo has a bum fin. He has a disability. There's a lot of characters sort of in these, and in this one we go to a hospital where some of the characters have this some affliction, and we never really. I mean, I think they're just characters in the movie, and we never take that for granted, so to speak. So I don't. You know, I mean, I can't remember a time where we had a joke or there was something written by Andrew that we went, you know what, this is too far, according to, for the affliction part of it.
Right,
but maybe the character, would Dory do this? We had those kind of conversations, you know, and it just seemed, we kind of found the line that way, and it seemed to work. And
the third hurdle, I think, this will be the last hurdle I'll throw you away, is I think it's justifying a sequel. Now, I know Pixar's done, Pixar was great for a while. They never did any sequels. Now they're doing sequels.
Sure.
It's neither here nor there. But did you feel like you had to justify this sequel? Because I think as soon as we heard Finding Dory, that, they're going to that cash cow again kind of thing. So did sequelitis was that an affliction you had to deal with or not?
No, we didn't. I think it was 13 years since we made the last one. I think there's, including Ellen, there's been a lot of people who've been wanting to do another one.
Yeah, okay.
But I think Andrew, there's a lot has happened at the studio, and so we've made other movies, and I don't think, we never really start with the idea of doing a sequel. We start with an idea of with this world we have another great idea.
Yeah.
So let's do this great idea. You know, Toy Story 2 didn't come out that far after Toy Story 1, but it was a great idea. And then same with Toy Story 3 came out later. Those three movies are in themselves great movies.
Yes.
The thing and this is, I think, another great movie, but it was an idea separate from sort of the first one that Andrew had come up with later. It seemed right to do it. What's interesting is my kid's first movie was Nemo in a theater. We went to the theater, that was their first movie.
Is that right?
I didn't work on the first movie, and here I have this opportunity 13 years later, and they are so connected to that world.
Yeah.
We're finding people are just really passionate about wanting to see that world and wanting to live in there for another hour and a half. And so that was actually more of a hurdle. In one way, that was a hurdle that we had, was to make sure that we honored that world, but give them something different that's not this. We don't want to do the same story again, for sure.
Fair enough. Okay, so I don't have a lot of time with you, so I want to get to the heart. I mean, as those of us that have sort of now watched the Pixar brand crop up, I mean, there always seems to be a moment where your heart's gonna just crash and burn. You're gonna be, the emotions just all come to a head. In Up, it's like in the first 15 minutes.
It's an amazing piece of cinema. Yeah, it is.
I mean, you guys are famous for that. There is another. I don't want to give too much away, but there is absolutely a point in this movie that deals with her parents and all this. That it emotionally. You just dissolve as an audience because, like, man, they got me again. I'm wondering if you can talk about the animator's role in getting to that point, because you guys are so good at this. You must know what you're doing. How is it that you set us up for these big emotional responses?
Well, I think it's really, really difficult to get an audience to buy into new characters. In this case, they're not new, but there are some new characters in the movie. And to go, if we're true to the characters, and if we can, I think the audience buys in. And if they're in through our performance, we just need to be true to who they are, and we're drawing from real life a lot. Here's a character who doesn't know her family. Yeah. That alone, right there, is very emotional.
Right.
And you're using this metaphor of the ocean, going on this amazing journey to try to figure out where she's from.
Yeah.
If we do it right, if we mix everything together and it comes out right, and our performance lands, that's where you get these real emotions that are true.
Yeah.
And that's where the tears come from.
Yeah.
And that's what all our movies are like that. They're kind of trying to come from this real place.
Yeah.
And that you tend to cry a lot in our movies.
That's definitely true. So when you guys, you mentioned you've been working on this for 3.5 years?
I have, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so And you know, Inside Out was famous for it. You actually did all this, and then you just set it aside for a while, then you come back to it and all this. What, I don't know what you can tell us about what changes or what developments happened over the course of at least 3.5 years and longer
Sure.
if there were people involved before you were, that ended up with the result that you got. In other words, if you'd made the movie 2 years in, what kind of movie would it have been, and how differently would it have been if 3.5 years? And how do you know that 3.5 years is enough, and why not 4.5 years? I mean, how do you know when you got it, and how do you know when you don't?
Well, the crew at Pixar, they are probably harder on the movies than anybody.
Yeah.
So we will storyboard tonight. We think we have an idea. It starts with the script. We have an idea, and we're going to start there. We know it's going to change. But there's a point in every movie that we make where it's terrible. And we'll watch it, and we'll be like, this is terrible. I don't know how we're going to fix this. But inevitably, we brainstorm, we come up with ideas, and it starts, it's this, we're making something and crafting, it gets better, we'll throw things out, we try new ideas, we throw that out. All eyes are always on every story we do. And it just, over time, gets better and better and better. In terms of, it's hard to even know what to say. I mean, we've thrown away whole sequences. We've gone down paths that are completely gone. Characters are out, new characters are in. Just in all service to try to tell the story about Dory.
Now, are you at liberty to say, for instance, like what avenue you went that you ended up?
I think it would. I don't think it would even make sense.
Okay.
I can't even think of. Like, we had just sequences of them. So we spent, like, for example, we spend a lot of time. I think there was a moment we spent a lot of time back sort of in the reef with Marlin and Nemo, more than we do in this particular movie, and we needed to go. We need to go. We need to get that thing going. And so there was. I think that, those kind of things. Some of them are big, some of them are just small little things. A little line here and a little line there, all of a sudden will set up something big later.
Okay, so we've already talked about they're big emotional responses in this movie. I mean, they're undeniable, but they're also these great, and this is what Pixar does so well. You feel, after you see enough Pixar films, you feel like you are completely manipulated, but it's like it's so positive, the manipulation, that you love it. And one of the things you guys do so well is that you have not only these big emotional moments, you've got these really sharp, quick, like comic relief, or just brilliant little bits. There are two I want to just ask about.
Okay.
First off, the sea lions on that rock, how long have they been in the story? Because you could easily have had very successful Finding Dory without either of those characters.
Sure.
And yet they are, I mean, it's just brilliantly done. You get the two guys from The Wire to voice it. It is so funny. I watched, just because it's one of the clips that, that's available on the internet. I was watching it over and over. I'm just kind of like studying how quickly I don't want to give it the jokes away, but how quickly they go from talking to Nemo and his dad, and then go over and brush the other one up, and then how quickly they come back.
Yeah.
It's just so brilliantly handled. How early on was that, and how did you decide how to do it to make it work? Was it a longer sequence? It got tighter and tighter and funnier, or just the opposite?
So they were sort of in the movie maybe halfway through.
Okay.
And actually, maybe they were in the movie from the beginning, but they were inside MLI, inside the Institute.
Okay.
And they were characters, and we were working with them and trying to get them to work. There was a point in the movie when we were like, okay, how do we get Marlin inside? And so then there was a lot of, there's a plot thing, we need to get them inside.
Yeah.
So they came outside, and then out of that developed this sort of joke that you're talking about. And also with Becky and all of that sort of interaction, Becky the loon. But then in terms of that one scene, that comedy came out of, I think, a storyboard session. It was funny the first time we saw it. And the animator just sort of needed to fill in the blank. But through timing, like there's this real funny timing. Yeah. We're trying to capture real sea lions, but then they're doing this not so real thing. And I think the marriage of those two things made that joke really funny. The timing of that is very, very funny.
Yeah.
But those characters they were sort of a little bit different. They might, but they were somewhere else in the movie, and we sort of jiggered it so that they were outside.
And so when you finally got that scene in its final form, you just go, got it.
Yes. I mean, it took a long time, and there was a lot of iteration to try to is this funnier?
Yeah.
If we take frames out, like down to the frame, is that funnier? There's a lot of talk, and we really worked with the directors to sort of land the comedy of that.
Yeah. See, I think that would be great. And then the other thing I thought was ingenious is that, because you're going to have a huge, children are going to be flocking to this movie, and you turn the children into monsters at one point with the hands business.
Right.
You know, and
right.
it's like, I don't know what that's going to do to the psyche of a kid who loves that kind of stuff to suddenly see themselves cast as the villain, the bad guy kind of stuff like that. I just thought that was a brilliant notion. How did the notion come about, and how much of it was just the very idea that kids' hands could be seen as the enemy, and how much of it was handled in the animation of that scene?
It's interesting. I think that's a sequence that was in there for a long, long time. That was in there kind of from the beginning. If you go to an aquarium, there's always a touch pool, and there's kids, and then which is great.
Yeah.
And then you put yourself in the place of Dory in there, and all of a sudden everything changes.
Yeah.
And then through the animation and the power of that sequence, it became very. It was from the beginning one of my favorite sequences, just because of how it twisted that around. From a different point of view, it's this. From the other point of view, it's this. But from Dory's point of view, this is horrible.
Yeah.
So
I thought it was brilliant. And there's so many other things that, it's a great idea too. Okay, another thing I want to ask you is, I see we've got to wrap up. So when my kids were growing up, they were in the great Disney animated musicals, so Mermaid and all those unbelievably great movies. And Pixar comes along and they make equally great or greater movies. But I've noticed, except for the early exception of Randy Newman, songs, you guys choose not, as a rule, to incorporate songs. So they're not like musicals, like the Disney brand from the 80s, I guess, in the early 90s. And why is that? Was there like a conscious decision that we're going to break away from those classic, Disney films, or does it just feel like maybe music isn't where you guys want to?
I don't think there was it's just that the stories maybe they came from a different place. They didn't require that necessarily. Okay. When I watch WALL-E, there's Hello Dolly stuff in there, and Andrew did that.
Yeah.
And that was a great use of that. And we might. That's not to say we would not do that.
Okay,
I don't think there's no sort of rule that we wouldn't do that. I think in the future we'll probably love to do that.
Okay, see, I think it would be interesting to see, because I'd love to see what Pixar does with music, in terms of musicals. And I get Randy Newman, did clever little things, but I mean more of the full body. Every character gets a song,
singing
kind of
and dancing, the whole thing. Sure,
okay. Okay, and then finally, I just want to ask you what the Pixar brand means, because my second favorite animated film of the year last year was Anomalisa, and I realized that is not anything that Pixar would ever do, I don't imagine, because Pixar has a different kind of, and I thought that raises an interesting question for me. How does Pixar see its brand? Because I don't know what you, maybe as an animator, I don't know what you thought of Anomalisa, but I thought, wow, that is a really completely different take on the world that I thought was,
it's a great movie. It's absolutely a great movie. And the place probably doesn't come from Pixar because of the history of what we've done is for families and kids and everything. But that doesn't mean we wouldn't push some bound. I think when we first did Incredibles, there was a lot of people who were like, you can't do this. Yeah. This is different. You can't. No one's going to go to
Yeah.
And we pushed that boundary, and I think it's not to say that we wouldn't do a more adult themed ideas, but we do have an audience, and we respect that. Like our brand is just making really as good as movies as we can make. That's really our brand. And we will hammer it to death until it's good. I mean, we really don't stop. We want it to be as good as we can make it, and that's really our brand.
And I really have to go to my final question.
Sure.
Where do you want to go from where you are now? Are you at the top of the heap, or do you want to be a director? Do you want to be?
I'm an animator.
You're an animator, okay.
I supervise this movie. I might go animate on another movie.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, animation is what I love.
Yeah.
I love the acting part of it. That's what I want to do. Yeah. So whether if I do this role again, great. If I go back and do animation, great.
Do you know what you're going to do next?
Not yet. I'm still working. I'm still in this world, and I'll need after 3.5 years, I'll need a little break, and then I'll decide what I want.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Okay, man. Thanks a lot, Michael. That was great.
Thank you.